Hi, friends. How are you? I appreciate, yeah, I know. So we weren't sure how many people were interested in jumping on, but we wanted to get together and kind of do a little bit of an impromptu ice conversation because Jen, thankfully, has been all over the place. She has been, she has talked to so many different people about a lot of the same things. And my dear friend, frequently will say to me, I've been talking about the same thing for how many years?
Right.
5? 10? How many?
Well, yeah, I've been doing this work for probably a decade now, but as far as like the talking points in this mass deportation and what I've been warning about, I would say since like 2017, 2018.
Yeah. So, and you're like, I don't understand. I've been saying this over and over. But I've had the good fortune of being able to chat with Jen Budd offline about a lot of different topics. And we kind of get into some additional topics that I've noticed that she has not talked about. So I wanted to kind of pick her brain about that. And for those of you that follow her, for those of you that don't, she's a rock star. She is the author of Against the Wall and Ice, Everything You Need to Know. She is a former senior Border Patrol officer and now immigrants' rights advocate, huge rights advocate, and also has been on um, the Emmy award winning show, Critical Incident Death at the Border, in which her work was just an enormous part of being able to uncover what's going on with some of these. What is the name of the department again, Jen?
Critical incident teams, the cover up
Critical
teams.
incident teams. Yes. Okay. So, but um, we're just going to go ahead and get into it. One of the things that I wanted to make sure people were aware of, I live in the state of Ohio. And so TPS status has been revoked. Jen, could you chat a bit? Just tell people what that actually means.
So TPS stands for temporary protected status, and it's a status that essentially allows the president at any given time. So when there's an emergency like the Ukrainian war
Yeah,
started and stuff, then they can issue a TPS and say, those people obviously they can't wait. So we're going to
right.
get them in. And so it's essentially like they're a pre-authorization, not necessarily asylum, but just temporary protected status, meaning you come through and they do still do the record checks and the vetting. But because of the situation that's going on in your country, you don't have to make a case for that. We understand what's going on, and then we'll help you get to where you need to go. A lot of times, there's a little bit of refugee resettlement compensation that can help them, and they'll also place them in communities that will help them. So,
So to put it in perspective, the United States, granted that status to Haitians,
mhm.
how that was 4, 5, however
They've
many
done it
years ago.
off and on throughout the years. I don't know how many it applied to, and as far as the
There were
Haitians,
several
but
100,000 that came
yeah.
through from my recollection. Well, so there's so I live in the stupid state where they were talking about they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs. That was my state. Nobody was eating cats and dogs, friends. Nobody was eating cats and dogs. They were lying. I've actually been to Springfield. One of my dear friends had a child that was going to a college in Springfield. And because they were such jerks about the way that they put that out there. They actually had to shut down school for over a week while the students went home because there was so much media that descended upon there so that they could see all the cats and dogs that people were not eating, right?
Yeah.
So there were roughly 15,000 Haitian immigrants that ended up in Springfield. And my understanding from some of the organizations that I've been in touch with in Ohio is also that that kind of compounds the issue. There are 1,200 children over the last 5 years or so since they have this enormous population in Springfield that have been born in United States. So they are American citizens.
Mhm.
So can you, first of all, well, first let me say this. So I want everyone to know what's happening. What's happening is all of those people are now receiving letters from the government that says report to the ICE office in Cincinnati. So we don't have the enormous, like, we don't have Camp East Montana in
Mm.
Ohio. But they said they want them to report to the ICE place, I believe in Cincinnati.
It's probably
And
the regional office.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And if they could be detained or they will be given ankle monitors like
Mhm.
criminals
Mhm.
and be monitored in that way. These are people who came here legally, came here the right way, were granted status, and they have the people of Springfield will tell you there's all kinds of information out there about how they have contributed to the community. And it was kind of like on the downward spiral, but they have like infused the community with, you know, all kinds of commerce, and they are working and doing great things there. And now they're all going to be rolling around with ankle monitors. So, and 1,200 children that are American citizens whose parents are apparently expected to just go back to Haiti. I have a friend who recently actually became an American citizen, who is actually from Haiti and shared with me still, you know, just how absolutely incredibly dangerous it is over there. Um, and in Port-au-Prince, because everything's been overtaken by gangs, and how dangerous, how terribly dangerous it is. So, um, Jen, can you walk us through what what is that? So, what happens when you were an ICE officer for, or I'm sorry, it's different. You were
I
Border
was a border
Patrol.
patrol agent.
You were
I've
Border
never
Patrol,
met a Haitian as an
correct?
agent. So, yeah.
Okay. You only dealt with predominantly Latin Americans.
Right, people crossing the border down on the southern
Okay.
border. So,
So, however, either way, when you have a child who is born in the United States
mhm.
and the parent is allegedly no longer welcome here for whatever reason, have you ever dealt with TPS where somebody's status has been revoked and their child was here, but they were expected to go back? Has that ever happened to you?
Well, I've
Just out of
dealt with
curiosity.
people who were here who were undocumented, and maybe I apprehended them at the checkpoint, the Interstate 8 checkpoint, and their children were United States citizens. I talk about in this book, in my book, because I would have told you I have not separated families. But then I remember that one woman I took off a bus and begged me not to return her and said, you know, I have a 13-year-old child. She's born here. She's U.S. citizen. And I still sent her back. And so the um the issue with TPS and if you have a United States citizen child in the past, when I was an agent in the 90s and the early 2000s, they typically tried to work with the person and maintain their status because you could not legally deport a United States citizen, right?
Okay, so let's
And
talk about that.
yeah,
So
and
so
so
if they had
then
a child here, they tried to work with them back in the past. That was your
yeah.
experience.
That was my experience. I'm not saying that it was for everybody. Certainly, if you were somebody who, if the parent had committed a very serious, egregious crime, they would be separated from their child anyhow and be put in
Right,
prison for a certain amount of time, and then that child would end up in the custody of other relatives and so forth. So that
right.
sort of took care of it. Then, if they got out of jail, then and they were deported, likely the child stayed with the family. But what we've seen over the years, in the last 10 years, but especially during this mass deportation, we see where, and we saw this in Florida with the woman whose child, Orlean Hernandez Reyes, the 2-year-old child was a United States citizen. She begged to take him with her. So they're claiming that they give the parents that they're going to deport the option right now. I think in some
Mm,
circumstances they are, so they're not officially deporting the US citizen child because they can't legally do that. They're just the
right,
parents taking the child with them. And the parent is deported, and but in this case with Orlean and his mother, they deported her even though she requested to take him with her, and they instead turned him over to an uncle who then beat the child to death. Um,
right, right,
right.
right.
So in that instance, that's so there's a variety of different ways that they can do this and handle this. I would suspect that when it comes to Haitians, I will say the immigration agencies have a lot of hatred for Haitians. The American government
Why
has a
and why is
lot of
that?
hatred for
Why?
Haitians. I you know, if you talk to historians, they will go back to the fact that Haiti was the one country that overthrew the slave trade.
Okay.
Yeah, they fought against the
Damn
French.
them.
Yeah,
Anyway.
and they were successful, and they have a very, strong history of that and so forth. I was in 2021, so in Biden's first year. Do you remember when they had the Del Rio incident and there were, like, about, I don't know, tens of thousands of Haitians that
Yeah.
came across, and then they were kept in this outdoor encampment? And that was kind of this, weaponization of migrant bodies to create what looks like an invasion. And the
Mhm.
Border Patrol kept saying, "We had no idea they were coming." It's like, "Bullshit. Y'all
Right.
know everything that's
Yeah.
coming."
Right.
And I've seen the intelligence documents and everything. They know all that stuff. Um, and in that instance, a lot of those people they did end up during the Biden administration, getting TPS, and some were deported. Um, and in that instance, I got to meet Geraldine Joseph, who's the head of Haitian Bridge Alliance. She was there, and that's when we first met in a park in Texas, in nowhere. And she's running across going, "Jen," and I'm like, "Who are
Yeah.
you?" and but she's an amazing woman, and she really put a lot of focus onto the cruelty and the inhumanity. But so in this case, I don't know what it is other than that they're black. That's all I can tell you. The majority of Haitians are black. And then we've just always treated their island kind of like Cuba. We treat them like shit, and
Yep.
kind of like Puerto
Yes,
Rico, to
yes.
be honest with you.
Yeah, wait,
Um,
yes, as a Puerto Rican, I'm here to tell
yeah.
you that is actually true. Yep,
And then we never fix anything, after the hurricanes and stuff. You saw Bad Bunny at the Super Bowl with the homage to all of that, and basically just we allow corporations to go in and half-ass everything and rip off all their money, and just it's just a con game. And it's kind of how we treat the other countries and stuff, and now how they're treating Americans. So I can't really speak
so we
as to
don't
why
know
that
for
is,
sure
but
based
yeah,
on
we
what
would
you
need
talked about
somebody with a little
Orlean.
bit.
Well,
Yeah,
how do
I
you
mean,
say based on so with that situation, they did deport the parent and left him here with someone else, and then he died because of
he
they
was
placed him
murdered.
with an abuser.
He was tortured and murdered.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And ICE's excuse is, well, we checked his background, and it's like, okay, but you yourself said the uncle was also here for asylum, just like the mother was. And it's like, and then they said, "Well, it's Joe Biden's fault because he wasn't vetted properly." And it's like, so you gave a child, an American citizen child, over to someone who you believe isn't vetted properly?
Right. Where's the
You know,
responsibility and the accountability with
where's
that?
the responsibility in all of this? And so,
Yeah.
they wanna have their cake and eat it too. They don't wanna have any responsibility, and they just don't freaking care. Um,
So I don't know. I guess neither do you. We don't know what they're planning to do with literally
no.
1,200 children that and this was a reliable source that I was online with that I heard talking about this, that there was over 1,200 children that have been born here in Ohio who are American citizens. And we don't know, but obviously it has already been proven that in some situations they will determine that you can either take your child or you can leave them here, or maybe they'll decide that for you.
Well, the ultimate goal, though, I think it's important in this context to consider the ultimate goal, which is what they just tried to do, but they lost, was end birthright citizenship. So then that would
Correct.
take care of these children and we could get them
Exactly.
out too.
Right.
And Justice Kavanaugh gave Congress the ability to fix one law, he said, from I think 1950s. If you fix this law, then maybe we'll be there. And so that's the goal, is to end birthright citizenship. So I hesitate to say these kids are safe because they were born here. The fact of the matter is they're trying to overturn that.
Which
So
is just unbelievable. But for any people that happen to be in the Ohio area or region, I did see a flyer that I can send out to everyone to make sure that you have the information. There is going to be a mass protest outside of this ICE facility um, on Sunday, August 9th. So, yep. And if you are around and you would like to go attend, I would encourage you to do so. I will be there. So there's that. That'll be interesting. I'm gonna have to get some pointers from you, Jen, because who knows what happened.
okay,
Who
we'll
knows?
talk privately.
Yes, we will. We will. We'll talk privately. Um, also, I wanted to talk a little bit. So one of the things that I had spoken with Jen about with the gentleman, the 26-year-old young man, the young father and husband, the father of the girl dad with a 3-year-old beautiful little baby girl who was executed in the street, Johann Sebastian Guerrero.
Mhm.
Um, I'm saying his name wrong. Juan, I think, is how you say it.
I
I
say
don't know.
Jawan. It's
Okay,
hard to
well, either
say.
way, and also, Lorenzo
Mhm.
is it Delgado?
I always call him
Lorenzo
Lorenzo. I'm not sure of his last name.
Lorenzo.
There's so many
So,
people now; it's hard to keep track.
I
So.
know, which I wanna remind people, as of July 13th, after, Juan, the count of people. Now this is I we all believe that it is much higher than this, right? But based on some of the data that I acquired from, and I want to make sure that I'm sharing this person's name with their um because they did a lot of work on this. Um Ali, I will get back to you on that person's name, but
I know
uh,
who you're talking about. That kid
yes.
that kid knows their stuff. Uh,
Absolutely. Really, really
insane stuff this kid puts out that I'm just like, "Wow, I don't
I
do
know.
that."
I'm really, really, really,
I'm trying to
really
look him up real quick.
yeah, no, I wanna say his name because it's really important. Because he did this work and I have it, but I just wanna make sure that
Why is he not on here?
hold on, I put on my old girl glasses so that I could Ali Hart.
Ollie Hart,
Ali
Hart.
Hart, Hart. So he has an ICE and CBP related deaths archive, and then there was some other things that I quadruple checked, but as of July 13th, and then that changed also because after I had published something on it using his work, there was another person who was being chased by ICE who was in Florida, I believe St. Augustine, who was running from them and ended up crossing the road and ended up getting hit by a car. So,
Mhm.
but at that moment, it would have been 98 people since 2025. And we all suspect there's more. That's all that anyone has actually recorded. But within the last year, that would be 34 deaths since 2026 that have occurred. That being said, going back to my original point that I wanted to talk to Jen about, and all of you, is that um, simultaneously, I'm looking up the training hours that were significantly reduced, right?
Yeah.
that has occurred with ICE. So okay, I enter picture in a picture. I don't think I want to enter a picture in a picture. I don't know why that's happening. Sorry, guys. So, at any rate, um, what happened was back in August of 2025, Todd Lyons there was around, they said, roughly like 6,500 deportation officers. And then Congress approved nearly $30 billion for ICE hiring, right?
Mhm.
And then Todd Lyons was like, yeah, we're going to hire 10,000 more by the end of 2025. Hoorah! Right? The largest deportation operation in American history. So, um, they didn't really disclose evidence about this, but they were expected to learn constitutional law, immigration enforcement, firearm safety, vehicle stops, use of force judgment in, drumroll please,
Emergency
40
medical care.
Oh, thank you. See, this is why you're here. So, as they were about to embark upon their ethnic cleansing campaign, 42 days. How do I know this? Well, records obtained by the Washington Post showed that ICE cut approximately 240 hours from its basic academy, reducing the 584-hour program described by former ICE lawyer Ryan Schwenk to roughly 344 hours. So they got rid of 40% of the curriculum.
Yeah.
So, Jen, could you talk? Could you? So it eliminated, did say, so what it cut was it cut firearms training in half. It cut nearly eliminated fitness instruction, reduced classroom instruction on case processing and deportation officers' legal authority. It eliminated driving tests, 3/4 of the time used to evaluate recruits, practical abilities, and all the 26 hours previously used to test skills specific to immigration enforcement and deportation operations. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that I'm listing the things that have been documented by the AP and also by the Washington Post as of last year. Jen,
Mhm.
could you tell us about your experience with
Uh, wait,
training and what was required of you?
in the mid-90s, the border obviously, ICE did exist, but the Border Patrol Academy was 4 months long. God, we had, like, 3 days a week of firearms training for months and months and months. And you go through all that, but I have to confess, I remember there was a day when we were supposed to do, it's called felony stop or high risk stops, which is what you see ICE doing now. It's very dangerous, and you're supposed to have a lot of training. And because we were in Georgia, it rained a lot. It was the summertime, and when it rained quite often, and they were like, "Oh, we can't teach you that." And so they just signed us all off on it. So this is the kind of poor ass training has been going on for a long time. And then after 9/11, when George Bush does this big hiring thing for the Border Patrol and they start creating ICE and all that, they ram through a whole bunch of people. And we saw what happened back then is happening now, where they're not completing the background checks. There's never been any psychological evaluation for those in the immigration agencies as there is in other police departments, or there was at least back then. I don't know if police departments are doing it nowadays. But I mean, just to tell you, like the average police department does a minimum of
Is that
that's
Kimmy?
Kimmy. That is Kimmy
Kimmy. Hi, Kimmy.
of a 6 month academy, and then you have 2 years of probationary training. So I did a 4 month academy in the Border Patrol as a federal agent, and there's a lot less you have to know in immigration than I would say as a regular police officer, because there's a lot more laws that they have to know. um but then my training after the academy was only about say it was 6 months after the academy,
Mhm.
and, the Border Patrol has gone back and forth. For a while, they did a 6-month academy. During right after 9/11, they dropped it down to 52 days.
Yep.
They got rid of the Spanish requirement, which really isn't even that much of a requirement as it is anyhow, even though they tell everybody we speak Spanish fluently, that's bullshit. Um,
Well, I think they cut the Spanish anyway.
yeah, they cut the
That's been
Spanish,
cut.
and, I mean, even after I left, they lowered the physical standards, and that was the one thing the Border Patrol had on everybody was the physical standards, so I had to do the mile and a half in less than 13 minutes, but then right after I left, they were letting people do it for, like, up to 14. Now it's up almost to 15 minutes to do a mile and a half. It's ridiculous, and that's why so many of these agents come out of the academies overweight and stuff. Um
Also, though, they said, sorry, I didn't mean to, like,
No, go
cut
ahead.
you. So, also, they had indicated that, for former law enforcement off like, training, anyone but they don't disclose what that means specifically, that
Mhm.
it for former law enforcement training, they could bypass the academy altogether. So does that mean, like, if you're a security guard? Or, like, what does that do you have any idea what that means?
We don't know because they won't tell us what it means, but when we
Mhm.
look at the ICE agent who shot and killed, Johann Sebastian
Yep.
in Maine, David Brulette, I think is how you say his name, they were saying, "Oh, he was a career law enforcement officer." He's like, "He's not a career law enforcement officer. He did a little bit in corrections." And corrections is a completely different
Yeah,
animal
I thought so, yeah,
than
it's
any
not
kind of law enforcement whatsoever. And so, and they were like, "Oh, no, he was a professional." And it's like, well, if that's what you can, I think, and he was also a security guard at the VA hospital.
not the same.
No,
So
it's not
so
the
they
same.
did say, though, that they did say that they could skip academy altogether and do online training of some sort, but they don't say really how much, and then they could do on the job training. So, essentially, I mean, I just want people to kind of when you hear that at first, you're like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
And to process the fact of the types of stops that they're doing. So you talked to me about different kinds of stops and that you had said, can you share what you said about the types of stops that it appears that they seem to be doing with like Lorenzo and Juan?
So what they did with Juan, Joan, and Lorenzo, both of the agents stated in those cases that they were surveilling a different suspect when they saw both these men in separate cases, separate states drive by, and they decided to go after them. And so, based on just what they said, that means they're racially profiling them for an immigration violation, which,
Mhm.
according to the Supreme Court, is legal. Whether we agree with it or not, the Supreme Court has said it's legal. Okay, so
Mhm.
so
We
they go
don't
to.
agree with that. We don't agree with that.
We
But
don't
yes.
agree with it, but at the same time, that's why they say they did the stop.
Mhm.
And so if you're gonna do an immigration stop, this is how an immigration stop a routine immigration stop. I don't suspect you of murder, I don't
Right.
suspect you of any kind of horrible thing other than just
Right.
perhaps being out of status or undocumented or whatever.
Mhm.
So what that is a civil administration offense, and so I turn on my lights and all that other stuff, you stop for me, and I get out the car and I say, "Hey, US Border Patrol, please state your citizenship." "I'm a US citizen." "Okay, thank you." Or, "I'm not a US citizen. I'm in the process of getting my asylum. Here's my papers," which is what they would have done. Then you check your
Mhm.
papers. "Okay, thank you very much." That is it. It's called a routine stop, like a traffic stop, right? And what these agents are doing from the get-go in the way that they are chasing them down from the get-go, and you can see the cameras, afterwards, the people that are catching all this on their Ring cameras and this, you see them like you would think these people just robbed a bank or something or killed somebody
Right.
the way they're chasing
So,
them down.
and what do
And
they
so
call those stops?
they call those stops in the old day they were called felony stops. Today they're called high risk stops.
High
And
risk stops.
high risk stops require a high level of accountability, a high level of coordination. You're supposed to have people backing you up. You're supposed to know who's going to give the commands, not give conflicting commands. Be very clear in your commands. You
Right.
typically are ordering them out of the car with your gun exposed on them and everything because you think this person's dangerous.
Right.
So that's what they're doing. And if you're somebody who, like these two men who were killed by ICE, they're in the system. They're doing it the legal way as they're supposed to do. So they're like, they don't know what's going on.
Right.
They're confused. Why are you doing this to me? Why, I could see if you wanted to stop me, then I'd stop. But, and so they're confused. And then they start, this is one of the reasons why you see them bust out windows all the time. We've done that down here on the border. So they don't train you the bad ways in the academy. They train you the bad ways once you get in the field. And so one of the ways to accelerate the violence in something, to escalate the violence in something, is you run up on the cars and you blow the windows out with your batons and stuff, because it will cause the driver to panic. And then when they hit the gas, you can say, "Oh, they tried to hit me," and then you can justify your shooting. That's
Right.
actually how it's taught. This is how you can justify shooting and killing people. Yeah.
Wow. And for those of you who may not have seen it, I would encourage you to go ahead and try to watch the critical incident death at the border. It's on HBO. Is it on? Is it streaming anywhere else, Jen?
No,
Okay.
they're limiting it, and if you have the package, the Disney, Hulu, HBO package, I don't think
Yeah.
you can see it on there. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to tell you that it's incredibly well done, but also very informative. I personally saw it the day that it was released, and then literally within a week is when Renee Nicole Good was murdered, and it's incredible how what I saw was, oh, this is how they do it. It's how they keep it all in the family
Mhm.
under even the investigation. So just briefly, because I know you've talked about the critical incident a lot, could you kind of tell people generally what happens in these investigations, how that works? Because we keep seeing it over and over again. And that's why we're not seeing accountability or justice, right?
Yeah, so whenever this is called a use of force incident. So whether you're throwing a spike strip, anything that could cause somebody major bodily injury or death is called a use of force incident. And so when you have a use of force incident, let's say I'm an agent and I shot somebody, what I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to notify my supervisors, and then those supervisors are supposed to notify every agency that has jurisdiction. So you got to notify your county, you got to notify your state agencies, and you got to notify then the federal agencies that would then come and investigate. And what
Right.
we do in the border patrol specifically with the critical incident teams is we created these illegal teams that were secret and not known to most people. And they acted as we were told privately when the law enforcement or the use of force manual was secret and not public. It said, "Call the critical incident teams first. Don't allow any other investigators in." And those teams come in and they fix the scene. So if I had said, "Oh, he tried to throw a rock at me," they might damage my face and make me look like I had a rock thrown at me. I've seen them actually throw rocks into cars to create the evidence and then take the pictures and this and that. Um, and they mess up the evidence. So these teams are not professional forensics teams. The Border Patrol created their own classes in the academy to hide it, and they created these teams all along the southern border. And so what you see is the southern border was the laboratory for what you're seeing in your cities today with ICE. And so
Mhm.
you keep the actual investigators away from you. And down here on the southern border, because we started giving so much money to the local police and stuff, and even the FBI in Tucson is grossly corrupt in that they use and they still use the same agent. Agent Michelle Terwilliger is still doing these cases after all these years for over 10, 15, I think maybe even now 20 years, just a long time in Tucson. She testifies and she writes in her reports that she identified the evidence and collected the evidence and it was all independent and this and that. But the reality is she's on the phone with these illegal Border Patrol critical incident teams telling them, okay, you can go ahead and process the scene. You can decide what is evidence. You can collect it all. And then I'll just testify that I did that. But when she gets into court 5, 10 years later, then
Wow.
you discover that she was lying and she has to admit that she was not actually there, but she's still there doing the cases. She just did one recently. And it's just like, and so we corrupted even the actual investigators. So even if the FBI is doing the investigation, we are controlling who. So I can tell you, I learned investigations before I got in the Border Patrol. And whoever gets to the scene first and decides what is evidence and what is not kind of controls the whole situation. And then how you collect it. If you collect it poorly and it can't be used, then juries are going to end up letting the agents off, which in the one instance that it did get to a trial, 2 juries said we cannot convict this agent because the evidence was collected so poorly by the critical incident teams. But nobody said they were illegal until I came along. And
I would
so
just like to just point out really quick that, and this happened with people that went through months and months of training.
mhm.
What
Yeah.
do you suppose it looks like now with so much less, with so much less training? I can't
Yeah.
even.
They hid the training for a long time. They hid it before 9/11, they hid it in the intelligence agencies, the funding for it, but it was just training that they set up for themselves.
Mhm.
Sometimes they would go to outside training if other police departments offered it, but it would be paid for through the intelligence departments. So nobody knew about the critical incident teams. And then after 9/11, when CBP came about, CBP's got a unit called Laboratory Science Services. And so they do a whole lot of different things. A lot of times they're checking for diseases or bugs and all sorts of
Yep.
like really serious, legitimate stuff. And they can do really serious forensic and evidentiary investigations. But so what they did was instead of like actually legalizing the sit teams and making them legitimate, they kept hiding the training within that and stuff. But now, yeah, now they're the training at the academies is not the training for the set teams. The set teams are completely siloed different, and you have to be a higher ranking agent to be able to get into those. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it.
Mhm.
But nevertheless, do you think that it's possible that the lack of training could also be contributing? Now, that's not the case with Renee Nicole Good because my understanding is the officers there were senior officers and they were in the, but recently the David Brulette um has only been recently hired. So he would have been in that group. I would also say that I did read that as of July 1st, Mark Wayne Mullen said that the training was going to go back up to 72 days. But I want to understand, how come the American public is not privy to know exactly what's going on?
National security.
Oh, right. Okay. I feel
That's
so
what
much
they're gonna national
safer.
security is law enforcement sensitive. We're dealing with terrorists here. Come on, Lisa, what's your
Yeah, oh
problem?
my god, what's wrong with me?
That's
Right,
all they scream every time. But I want to make sure that so even if they go back to regular training, even if they go back and give them more training, what you
right.
said about the Renee Good shooting is the problem that the whole thing is based off of.
Yep,
Is the guy who shot and killed Renee Good, Ross, Jonathan Ross, he was a former Border Patrol agent. And when I
yes,
saw him walking around that car, I was like, that's a Border Patrol agent. I can tell by his training because they
yes.
have more training. And I could tell that he was a firearms instructor. I could
Mm,
tell that he did not fear for his life because he was walking around with his camera held in his right hand, which was his gun hand.
yep.
Because
Didn't he
if
also
you
cross in front of the car?
Yeah, he did, but if you fear for your life, if you're concerned about being run over while he's walking around the car and he goes behind it,
Yeah.
you would leave your gun hand open to use your gun hand. He didn't. He was walking around with his phone taking pictures and taking video and stuff with his gun hand. It was once he got to the front of the car that he did this. And that told
Mhm.
me in his mind, he's preparing to shoot. And that's when he
Wow.
got in front of the car, but placed himself just on the corner of the car to make it look like he was in front of the car. And he's a firearms instructor for many years.
Oh.
He knows not to do
I
this. But
never knew
here's
that
the
he was a
thing.
firearms instructor.
Yes, but here's the thing. What
Okay.
he exhibited was the training that you get in the field after you do the academy. So in the academies, they're like, nope, you're not supposed to put yourself in front of a vehicle. You're not supposed to do this and that, blah, blah, blah. But when you're in the field, they're like, you can justify a shooting by saying they tried to run you over if you're somewhere kind of near the vehicle at the time.
Oh my
And
god.
they've always gotten away with it. So I hesitate to say that more training for these agents is going to make them better because it's
No,
not.
I don't think so
They
either.
have lots of training, but the training that they get outside of the academy is how to get away with this shit.
Yeah, which
That's the
is
training.
well, I was going to say, I mean, I don't know how to shoot a gun. I've also never been in border patrol, but one would imagine, based on what I'm seeing, that someone knows how to position themselves in front of a vehicle to maybe justify being able, and then, with this critical incident team that you speak of, it doesn't, they're protected, they're insulated,
You know
correct?
how they're boxing these cars in where they have one agent, so they're going after them with 2 cars, and then when they do finally get them stopped, they have one behind them and one in front of them. That's wrong too. You're not supposed to be putting vehicles in front where you get out. I mean, the person can just like automatically either hit you with their car or start shooting at you. And so they are intentionally putting themselves in danger. And at some point, and I would say too, they're intentionally putting themselves in danger by not wearing official uniforms, by
Mhm.
not being clearly marked. We've had this for years down here where agents would use these undercover cars and stop people, and someone ends up dead because they don't understand who this person is that is ramming them and trying to stop
Yeah,
them, and then a confrontation starts, right? And they
right.
end up dead. And every time the border patrol will back off and say, "Okay, we're not going to do. You have to have a marked car do the stop. You have to." These are all practices for the last 30, 40, 50 years have been consistent within law enforcement. What ICE and Border Patrol and CBP are doing right now is violating all those good practices in order to escalate the violence because they want their agents to get hurt. I have no doubt they want their agents to get hurt. And they are just waiting for the right opportunity when this happens. And when it does, they're going to martyr the shit out of that agent. They're
You
gonna
know,
use it to justify the hellfire and fury that they're gonna bring.
I'm so glad that you said that truth out loud, Jen, because that's something that we've talked about, and I feel as though I feel the same, like and, it's so unfortunate the way that people allow the government to use them.
Mhm.
They allow them to use Latinos, they allow them, to use African Americans, and, you're doing their bidding, and yet you literally are a throwaway, correct? I mean, women, you're carrying the water for the patriarchy, and yet, are they going to be there for you and have your back at the end?
No, they'll throw them under the bus if they
Uh-huh.
need to, to say the number one thing about these agencies, like in the Border Patrol, we call it, bleed green. Like, it's about the agency, and if you fuck up to the point that they can't do the cover up, then they'll walk away, and that's why I said when David Brulette did this, and then I saw his background coming out, I'm like, "I think they might throw this one under the bus." And even
Mhm.
Tom Homan was like, "I don't that was pretty problematic what that agent did, and now we're seeing the background and the lack of training and this and that," and so they might throw him under the bus because he is so problematic in the violence that he had in his past. And so they'll give that one, and then they'll tell Congress, "We're gonna do more training, and we're gonna do this," and then Congress and Democrats will go, "Okay," and everybody goes away, and everybody will forget about Joanne, everybody will forget about, his child and his wife and
But
everything,
we are
and
not going to
everybody just moves
forget.
on.
That's why we're here. We are not forgetting. Um, so 190, just to make sure everyone knows. $191 billion, friends, is what Congress has appropriated to build concentration camps and to add ICE officers and to do all of the other nefarious things that they have planned for brown and black people across the country, right? And I would also like to remind people that there have been 10 American citizens that have also been killed.
Mm.
So, so there's that. That has also happened.
Arlene's asking what happened to David Brulette. Nothing's happened to David Brulette. Nothing's happened to any of these agents. So after you get involved in this, then the agency treats you as if you're a target and they whisk you away to another area of the country and you just start working over there and you quietly work over there
And
while
I've
they
also
just
never
get rid
said
of all
this
this.
before. I've never done this. But if you guys appreciate the content, do that heart thing because, like, it actually matters in terms of I just keep hearing all these people talk about these hearts and these algorithms, which sounds nuts to ask people to press. But, like, I mean, I just really think that the information that you are sharing with people is so, 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 so important. I
Yeah.
want more and more people to hear your voice all the time because I think I hear a lot of people talking about ICE, but also, could you share with people that the NDA that exists and why you have the ability to like how you could write your book and come out and talk and you really there is you are we are few and far between to find an ICE or CBP agent that is out there talking about this because why, Jen?
Because after 9/11, and especially after when you get to 2019, Donald Trump did a presidential designation of CBP and Border Patrol as security agencies. And that designation as a security agency gives you a higher level of secrecy and intelligence and stuff like that. And so a lot of these agents are forced to sign what's called non disclosure agreements, which is not supposed to be valid if what the disclosure is about is a crime, but at the same time, they use it to browbeat them. I mean, I've heard even like in, I think it was the CIA where this woman was, a female agent, CIA agent was raped by, the superior, and they wouldn't allow her to report it because they considered the superior to be an intelligence asset, and she signed an NDA, and if she does that, then she'll go to jail kinda thing. And so they have more of a lockdown on these agents. What I know, a lot of people say, "Well, you were never in CBP," and it's like, "No, I was never in CBP. I was never around. I left right before 9/11 and stuff," and there's a lot of things about the agencies that I don't know from the inside just because I wasn't around during that time, thank God. I left when I did, but it's the culture. It's the culture that's the same. I mean, when I look at how they ram the vehicles, I'm like, that's the same thing I was taught, not in the academy, taught late in the night down here in the field in San Diego, out in the mountains and stuff, how to get away with ramming vehicles. I talk about it in my book.
Yes, you
It's the
do.
first chase I did
Yep.
where they taught me how to ram a vehicle and possibly kill people and get away with it. I had that one guy, another incident where a guy, it was an American citizen, pulled a gun on me as I was coming up out of an arroyo. And by the time I realized the gun was on me, I dropped to my knees and I pulled my gun and I realized this guy's way too far from me. He has a much bigger gun than I had. At the time I had a 357, he had a 44 Magnum. He could hit me. I could probably hit him. I was a really good shot, but also you're in the field and running at the same time. Luckily, he dropped his weapon before I could get my trigger pulled, and so I released my trigger and did not shoot him. And my classmates criticized me and said I could have gotten away with killing him, and I should have killed him.
Wow.
The goal was to get away with shit. That is the goal. And that's what you see in
Wow.
a lot of these
Wow.
private trainings now. So you have the agents who worked as training supervisors and stuff down here in San Diego sector, I know one of the training supervisors. She was a close friend of mine in the Border Patrol. She now owns a private training company, and so they go around and they teach, and so the police departments buy these private sessions, and so they're learning the training from these DHS agents and Border Patrol and stuff like that, and it's and they're learning how to get away with the violence, how to create and what to say in court. They even give them the court cases. This has worked at this time. This is what you say. This is how you get away with it, and this and that. So yeah,
It's scary stuff. Scary
yeah.
stuff, friends. Okay, and one of the things that we also talked about is an article that you recently shared with me about those individuals who might have a criminal case pending, right? And
Mhm.
then if they get scooped up, they are not actually ICE will not take them to their hearing. And
Mm,
so it remains unresolved. And can you talk about that a little bit so people understand what's going on?
do we know that? Do you have the name of the account, the Substack account that put that out there? It's a good account. I just
You know what? I
ran
don't,
into
but
it.
I will find it. I will find it while you talk about it.
Okay, you find it because yeah, I
I'll
sent it
find
to
it.
you in text.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
find it.
so it's a really good account that I just stumbled on, and essentially what they've discovered is so ICE is arresting immigrants, even immigrants who are in the process. They're doing it the legal way. And a lot of times that arrest occurs when they make accusations of other crimes, actual crime outside of immigration. And but they're being held within ICE facilities, in immigration facilities. And when they are supposed to go to court on the criminal charge, ICE is not taking them. So ICE actually has to transport them to the court to be able to do this, and they're not doing it. And so what happens in turn is then they are accused of a crime, and it's in this one case, the guy's name was Hillary, Hilary,
Mhm.
and it is a misunderstanding or it's something that he did not do that should be cleared up in this case, in this criminal fraud case or something like that. And and ICE would not take him to these hearings. So then it goes nowhere, but the accusation is there. And unfortunately, uh, Chingo slow to Democrats voted for the Lake and Riley Act, which allow ICE to hold people in custody without a conviction and without a charge, just with an accusation. And so they're holding people in custody and then not allowing them to clear up their criminal charges, which then it just feeds itself in the immigration thing. And so then it puts them in a loop where they can't get out of immigration. That's some
Yes.
crazy bullshit.
Right? So it talked about this guy who was stuck in there forever.
Juan, it's Hillary,
Also,
Hilary,
I'm
like a
okay, so
woman's name, Hillary.
friends, I just put the link in the chat so you have it. It is Bearing Witness, which I want to learn more about this organization because my understanding is they're also doing local
Mhm,
some local things as well. So we will, but I did put the link in the chat so you have it. It's called this particular article, if you want to read about Hillary, was trapped in the Lake and Riley Act. Hillary was detained for 10 months based on an accusation, and it was not proven. It was
mhm,
only the accusation of larceny,
mhm.
which it doesn't even sound like that actually even occurred.
No,
Uh,
it doesn't sound like it occurred. It sounded like it was I mean, this guy was doing everything the right way. He was enrolled in a PhD program, I think, or a
yes.
master's program and all this other stuff. He's trying to educate himself. He's working and this and that. And there was like some kind of miscommunication or misinterpretation. And it just needed to be figured out. But of course, ICE wouldn't allow him to go to these court hearings. So then it makes it look like he's trying to not cooperate on this and figure out what's going on. And so it's the same thing as kind of like closing it's it's not the same thing as closing the border, but it's just they just always constantly trying to criminalize these people, and they'll do it in any way. And if it's not getting you to your court hearings on time, well, then they'll do that too.
Speaking of which, also based on the conversation that we've had and that we've had with your dear friend Mo Goldman, who
Mm.
is an immigration attorney, I know that you're not an attorney, nor am I, but I would like you to just share based on your observation and your exposure to this. I am so sick of hearing, um, I don't mind immigrants as long as they do it the right way. Just do it the right way, damn it. Okay, guys, I just want to let y'all know like, first of all of us are hailed from immigrants. I don't care how many generations your family was
Unless
here.
we're natives
Unless I was just going to say,
or brought here on a slave ship.
unless you are indigenous Native Americans, your family, you also hailed from immigrants. Period. End of story. Mine
Yeah.
were among them. I have my great grandfather's great great grandfather's citizenship papers at Ellis Island. This is not Ellis Island. You don't just come off the boat and stand there among a couple hundred people or several hundred people even and go, okay, it's cool. I'll wait in the line. And once I get to the end, I get
Hmm.
entry. I'm going to establish residency. Mo Goldman talks about this in his book. He's a phenomenal immigration attorney. Um, because he is actually the direct descendant of two Holocaust survivors, were his grandparents. They are the sole survivors of each of their individual immediate families.
Hmm.
But to go back to, so it's not the same as it was, right, Jen? Can you
No.
tell people like, how long reasonably is there really a right way? And what does it look like? Because it can, so many different things can influence that, right?
Yeah,
And
I mean,
tell people how long.
there's a lot of different supposed right ways, and then I mean, just it our immigration system fails to account for all the different possible scenarios that could happen. Obviously, you can't possibly think of it, so you try and think of
Wow.
like you have TPS for this. Then they brought in DACA, then they brought in DAPA, then they brought, you have workers programs, you have green cards, you have fiancés, you have tourists who decide to stay. So there's all these different legal ways to do it. And I want to state that the majority of Americans think that people who are undocumented cross the southern border illegally. The vast majority of those who are undocumented in our country came in legally and overstayed their visas. Sometimes, a lot of times, it's somebody falls in love with somebody and they
Yeah.
just, and especially Canadians. There's a lot of
Is
Canadians
there
here.
really? I
Oh
don't
my
even
God,
know.
there's so many
And
Canadians.
what does the wall look like with Canada, Jen? I'm just curious.
Well, they wanna build a wall, but there's not a wall up there right now. So, and so there's a variety of different circumstances that have to be considered. I ideally, we should have this thing where we're like, "Okay, if you're out of status, you come in and talk to us and figure out why you're out of status. If it's not a criminal reason, like you couldn't afford it or you got sick, were in the hospital, missed your date, whatever, blah, blah, blah." But everything in this system since even before 9/11, but let's just say very seriously after 9/11 has become punitive. So if you fail to re-up your visa on time, you're suddenly a criminal and deportable. And the answer cannot be deportation for every single immigration violation, which is a civil offense. It just can't be that it's deportation.
It's
But that's what
definitely
they
not
want
putting
it to
people
be.
in concentration camps.
Yeah, but that's what
That
they
is
want it to be.
right. But also, according to Mo, and you've told me this as well, this is what people need to understand is, so if like he'll give the schedule of depending, so it depends on all the different things, like you said, what are they applying for? And so it can depend on their birth date,
Mhm.
also their country of origin,
Yeah,
correct? So
yeah,
that makes a big difference depending on where the person is coming from.
yeah.
So reasonably, there are people who are here for well over 20 years.
Yep.
And they have to continue meeting with people, going to court. Is that correct? It's not like you just get some papers and then you just stick around in the country for 20 years.
No, they
You
would
ha
do ICE check-ins, so after 9/11, you would have to do ICE check-ins, and then they made
Right.
it more and more, and then they started attaching GPS monitors to their legs, and so they're just criminalizing them. They're criminalizing them as they go along, and this is what you see in, like, Lorenzo's case. He did cross illegally, I think, when he was a lot younger, and,
He was probably a child.
yeah, maybe, and then, I know they said he was here for a very, very long time. But then he got into the system and was doing everything the right way and had been advised by his attorneys how to handle it if he got stopped by ICE and stuff. But I mean, now the important thing to know is that there is no legal avenue unless you're really
Yes.
wealthy and want to buy your way in. The
Yeah,
president has
didn't
offered
Trump
for
said,
millions of dollars you can get
it's like
into the country.
$5 million you can get a gold card.
Yeah,
Wasn't
and
that it?
so when they say it's about national security, it's not. It's actually about money and influence. So if you're rich, you can get in, no problem. But if you're poor, if your country resources are being sacked by the United States, like we do in Central America,
You mean like
if
Stephen Miller's parents? Because they weren't rich when they came in. I just wanted to point that out. Sorry.
Stephen Miller's parents, when did they come in?
My understanding is they did not have money either. They only had like a few bucks in their pocket.
Well, I'm sure
I'm
they came in a
saying
while ago. I'm
a
talking
long
about
time.
now.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Now,
Yes, I just
yeah.
meant like, sorry. I just
Yeah.
can't stand it. Go ahead. Yes, I
Yeah,
just am
no, a lot of
saying, yeah.
people do come here, but if the more money you have and the more power you have, the easier it is for you to come in. But like Melania's parents, but Melania got in by being sex trafficked, apparently, allegedly. So I mean, you know, but now that she's rich and famous, her parents can just come right in and they got in very easily, and there's no problem with that. But the people who are typically black and brown and coming from the countries that are destabilized because we are destabilizing them,
We forgot to
we
leave.
say, no,
Yeah.
you can't come in. You need to do it the right way. But then we limit what is the right way like this to now where it's completely closed. There is no right way. There is no way for people to come in and seek safety. No way. Absolutely no way.
Which is really, really, we're in a state.
We're in a
So
police state. That's where we're
yes,
at.
we sure are.
Yeah.
So, from your in your opinion, from your standpoint, for those people that this is just killing them, like I got to tell you, every day at some point, I I am brought to the point of tears based on a particular story that I hear, right? Because this stuff that is going on is just brutal, brutal. And you have shared with different people what's going on with children
Mhm.
specifically. Kids, how many children are being deported every month?
10,000.
10,000.
Mhm. Some of them unaccompanied children, others being deported with, their parents, others being deported as soon as they hit 18, ICE will go grab them. So you're not a child anymore and deport them back. And a lot of them, they don't speak the languages of the countries that they're being sent to. They don't remember the countries that they've been to. They, of course, can't necessarily function down there. But if they were really going after the worst of the worst, I mean, come on, they're going after children. 10,000 children a month, not a year, a month. Which is more than even Trump did in the first administration. And then also creating a bounty system in which they're paying
Oh, thank you. Please talk about that.
police officers and sheriffs $22,500 a child that they find, and then they give that information over to ICE, and then ICE can eventually go and find that child and pick them up. But it's also about then getting in the child's house, because let's say the child is from, let's just say, Nicaragua, and whether they're with family or whether they end up with a sponsor, typically those people are going to be people who are also from that area. So then you start checking everybody in the house. So it's an excuse to get into the house and then grab more people, is what it is. It's fishing.
Also, I believe the article I had read that actually happened in the state of Ohio. There is some nasty stuff going on here, friends. So there was an article about officers that were hired from they were actually law enforcement officers, not ICE officers, that were hired off duty, and they were getting this bounty and they traveled like a couple of hours toward the Cincinnati area or something, and were like, had found they were doing, they called them child checks, wasn't it?
Wellness checks.
Wellness checks.
Yeah, and they claim that they're trying to for their, Secretary Mullen has gotten up and said these children, that were put with families and put with sponsors during the Biden administration, now they're being sex trafficked. It's disgusting. It's like, okay, well, let's see the cases.
Mhm.
Crickets. It's not to say that there haven't been some cases. There has been some cases, and the Biden administration. I wrote about it, and I talked about it last week on my pod on my live, is that the system going all the way back, you can go back to like 2015 and see even in the Obama administration, there's always problems in these systems. Because as we know, wherever there are children, there's going to be predators. That's just a fact. And then at the same time, because the Border Patrol and ICE and these facilities don't do proper background checks, there's a lot of predators. And then when you get a lot of kids coming in, unaccompanied kids, and they have to, yeah, they're going to push them out and try and get them with people as soon as they can. That's not to excuse it. There's gotta be better ways and better checks and stuff. But at the same time, the amount that, they say like almost 500,000 children in the Biden administration have been sex trafficked, and that's just not true. It's just ridiculous. It's not true. Um, and
Also, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead. You're
And
on
it's
a
just it's just, it's the same thing that they always do. It's kinda like with the Lake and Riley situation. What happened to Lake and Riley was absolutely awful, awful, and the man who
terrible.
did it needs to be held accountable. And if he
They were,
was
but they
allowed
were.
into the country,
They were held accountable.
yeah, and
That's the
and
thing.
and they were, and if and I agree. If he came into the country and it was known that he had priors and stuff, we need to look at that and find out why he was allowed to the country, if he was inspected and this and that. But at the same time, they use this one instance to pass this whole act that now affects every immigrant in custody, as we're seeing with this Hillary case.
Yep.
What the Lake and Riley Act is doing is it allows ICE to hold people just on
Insane.
allegations.
Accusations.
And
Like, so
and so
if
if
you don't like someone, I mean, let's just be honest, the world is not a good place. So there are some nasty people out there. If you don't like someone, you could just say whatever. If you're an American citizen about someone who happens to be an immigrant, who's trying to do it the right way, right?
right, yeah, so you can do that to somebody, but the point is they'll take this one instance of Lake and Riley and create this whole act and change everybody's lives, and it affects everybody. But when it comes down to, like, they do it for harmful reasons, and so it's the same thing they've done with the children cases. It's like, yes, some children were found in a Hyundai plant working. That's labor abuse, that's child abuse. Some kids have been known to, unfortunately, have been sent to families or sponsors that did have sexual violence in it. That has to be addressed too. But it
Yeah.
doesn't mean all of them are, and by far not all of them are. But they use it then as an excuse to create this bounty program and say, oh, we're going to go protect these children. But really, what they're doing is looking for more people to deport.
The other part about that, when you're talking about this bounty program, so that's available through this. For those of you who may not know about it, 287G is a contract that that ICE, DHS can have with law enforcement, local law enforcement in your state and in your county and your city. There are different levels of 287G within these contracts, but they are being heavily pushed upon state and local law enforcement, correct, Jen? And so what happens is this is a way for that department to get money that is paid for to them by the federal government. So we all know our law enforcement is, you know, they always need more money for something to be able to, another car, more equipment, whatever it is. This is a way to acquire that or to build out their facilities, their jails, what have you. Typically they do it a lot with sheriffs, but they're also doing it with local police departments. So you would encourage people, right, Jen, to reach out within their communities and find out whether or not and there is a website. If you go to I can throw that in when I put this video out there. I can throw the link in there so you can check because you can look on the website, but I would still call your local law enforcement and sheriffs within your counties or region to be able to ask, do you actually have a contract with DHS? Do you have a 287G? Would you recommend that, Jen?
Yeah, and the 287G, so there's different levels of it. Like some of
Right.
them, your sheriffs may be just using it to house people for ICE. They get
Correct.
paid for that. Then there's
Hmm.
another part where police officers are encouraged to, when they do their traffic stops, then at the end of their traffic stop, after they give you your ticket for whatever, be like, oh, okay, and what country are you a citizen of?
Yeah.
And so then that's done, and then now we have this child thing. So there's different levels in which they can participate in. So if you went to your sheriff and you're like, "Are you participating in the 287G bounties for children?" They might say no, but they might be participating in holding people in their jails and stuff. So there's different levels and different ways they can do it. But then at
So
the
how
same
would they
time,
ask? How should they ask? Just are you participating in 287G?
I would say, are you cooperating
Okay.
with ICE and Border Patrol, CBP? Um, and then I would say, are you taking any money or funding or resources from uh, DHS? Is what I would say, because there's different programs under DHS outside of ICE that allow them to then have training, free resources, trucks, all this other
Yeah.
stuff. So there's all sorts of grants they can get too, and ask them. I would also ask them, are you engaged in joint task force with federal
Oh,
government?
great.
And if you are, what kind of task force? What are you doing?
I'm really glad that you said that.
Yeah.
And you've also encouraged people to show up, like we talk about this, show up at council meetings, show up at court. See, you've encouraged people to like sit in court for the day. I've heard you say that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to sit in court and see what they absolutely get away with. Right now, the biggest thing that you're seeing. So there's this thing that immigration attorneys are doing to try and protest the custody of immigrants who are just based off of a civil immigration violation. They should just be, if they're brought to the court for something, but not held. And so ICE
Right.
attorneys are arguing that they are everybody is a flight risk or and
Yeah.
dangerous to the community, and you'll just be like, based off of what? Well, he's Mexican, and it's like, oh, okay, he's Mexican. I mean, but he grew up here. I mean, he doesn't know any other community other than this community and stuff. And so, but yeah, going to court is an interesting immigration court. You should be able to go to immigration courts and sit and watch that. And I would encourage anybody to do that. Um, and then also any of the criminal trials that you might find, I would do that too when you see ICE
Okay.
involved, Border Patrol involved.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And we made a pact because I just love you. I
I
could
love
talk
you
to
too.
you. I could talk to you for the next God knows how many hours, but everybody has a life, and Jen
Not
is
much of a
being.
life.
I mean, yeah, yeah,
It's
I hear
all
you.
about this now. It's like,
I know, but I also just want to say how grateful everyone, we are to you because
yeah.
you are such an incredible resource for so many people. And I know poor Jen has to continue to say the same thing over and over. We were trying to bring, but it's so important because we have to, people's eyes are opening and people are awakening at different times, right? And,
I
I
want to
just,
say real quick, I see
yeah,
Winterish for Ukraine. I see you. So yes, Winterish for Ukraine is talking about in birthright citizenship that Russians have been coming to the United States for a long time to give birth. That is the real birthing scam. Is it's not, migrant women coming across trying to get their children to be United States citizens. It's
really?
Russians.
It's Russians.
Russians who
How
pay
about that?
rich Russians who pay a lot of money. You're welcome, Winterish, who pay a lot of money, and guess where they tend to go and stay? They stay in Florida,
Tell
they
us.
stay at Donald Trump's towers,
Oh,
and
you
that is
don't
where they
say. Is
give
that
birth.
right?
Yes, there's been if you look that up, you can look that up, and you
I'm
will
gonna
see in the
look that
first
up.
Trump administration, people were talking about it all over. There's, like, Russians all over, and they're like, "Oh, it's fantastic. We come here, and our children now they're United States citizens, and one day they'll rise to great power," and all this other stuff. And guess where
Oh,
they're staying? They're staying in Trump Towers. That's where they're staying.
well, that's
That's birth
nice.
tourism. If you wanna talk about birth tourism politicians, you need to be talking about rich Russians. That's who
Okay,
does that.
so also, before we go though, I want to ask you, in your opinion, what is it that we need to be saying to our lawmakers, to our elected officials? Because to me, there are some demands, regardless of party, like because we've all seen what's going on out there. Jen will tell you, I would tell you, there isn't listen, one side in some moments can be just as equally bad as the other. Jen talks about how from Clinton's policies had forced their deterrence policies had forced 80,000 people out into the desert to be able to cross, which inevitably ended up dying, correct, Jen?
Mhm. Yeah.
So you don't think that this is a partisan issue, correct? You equally, like, my understanding of you, of what you have said, is that over all these years, both parties have contributed to this. Is that
Yep.
right?
Yep. And I mean, the difference is that the Republicans are in charge now and they're more brutal about it and everything.
Now
But
it's terrible.
honestly, it's they couldn't have gotten here without a lot of shit from the Democrats. And you can see it in the Democrats now in that they'll take votes and say, "We wanna thank ICE for the work that they've done," and stuff like that. You've seen Democrats pass this Lake and Riley Act. I mean,
Yeah,
John
yes.
Ossoff is one of them, and John Ossoff right now
And I
coming
loved
out.
him. I loved
Yeah, and
John
Ro
Ossoff.
Khanna voted for it too, and there's a
Ugh.
lot of good people that voted for it, but it's kinda like, uh, you know, it's we need to I'm gonna put out a list of the ones who voted for the Lake and Riley Act. One of the things we wanna know is, do you still support the Lake and Riley Act? Because maybe you didn't know at the time, I get it, y'all don't read shit, and you just vote for it. Maybe you didn't know it at the time, but this is why ICE is able to hold people in custody indefinitely on an accusation or allegation that's just absolute bullshit. And I would also say if you cannot freaking say abolish ICE, then I just don't even know where we're
I'm with you.
going. And
I'm
are
with you.
you okay with these concentration camps and stuff like this? Democrats have to have, and I would turn you on to Andrea R. Flores. She's here on Substack. She used to
I'll get the
be
link and put it in the chat while you
She
speak.
used to be an advisor for Biden, but she left because she was disgusted with what they were doing. And she did advise for the Obama administration. But one of the things she says, and I've said this for years, is like, I don't agree with the Republicans. And people I talk to a lot of times say, I think the Republicans go too far, but you know what? They have a plan. Democrats have no
They
plan
have
in
a damn
immigration.
plan.
No plan. All they ever do is make fake promises about amnesty and a kinder, more gentler immigration system, and we're going to reform it. And then they turn right around and lie and just do the opposite and put in Republican policies.
In the
And
chat,
so,
friends.
yeah, and so we have to have accountability for the agents and for
Mhm.
the agencies who have been violating these people's rights and have done these horrible human rights violations and these
Yeah,
atrocities. They are building concentration camps to put people in it. They are holding people in these facilities who have not committed any crimes. And this is wrong. And if you cannot say that, you should not be leading this nation. You should not.
I'm
Just
with you.
period. I mean,
Thank you.
and you know what? Americans, we deserve a decent immigration policy, a decent immigration system, just like the immigrants do. We deserve a system that is not only going to inspect, but allow people in, bring families together, and also make us safer. What they have
That's
created
right.
they've created this monster, and for them to sit there and say, "I hear the
It's a
Democrats
shit
go,
show.
well, we can't get rid of ICE because we need law enforcement." What fucking law enforcement have you seen them doing? All you've seen them doing is terrorizing the communities. That's what
That's
they're
right.
doing. We don't
That's right.
need that. They are not providing law enforcement.
And to
They are
clarify,
violating
Jen,
the law.
to clarify though, just because it always kills me when people are like, "Oh, you woke, like Democrat,
Are you
progressive." Like,
serious? I'm an
I mean,
ex-border patrol agent. I'm from
I mean, it
Alabama.
just
I'm a Gen X.
you're
So
not.
far from woke. It's not
So
even
you're
funny.
not saying you're not saying open borders, right?
No,
Okay. Could you
no.
share like you're saying we need to just take it down to the studs and
Yeah,
start over because it's so corrupt,
yeah.
right? And we
Yes,
just do something
and we
completely
need
different.
accountability, and we need to stop allowing these people who are leaders in these agencies then turn around in the revolving door and go work for these contractors and all this. None
Absolutely.
of this has anything to do with safety. And you guys, you got to remember that. I guess it's been so long ago and people don't remember. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago to me, but the 9/11 terrorists, they came in the legal way. The immigration agents let them in. They did not come across the southern border. And the Border Patrol has never caught and adjudicated a terrorist coming across the southern border. They have never successfully adjudicated anybody. And they'll say they're on the terrorist watch list, but the terrorist watch list is as good as the toilet paper in my bathroom right now. You can put anybody's name on it. They have never said, like, we found this guy idiot. Because if they had, they would tell you that. But they
But also,
have
let's be
not.
realistic with that NSP. What the heck is the oh my goodness, the executive, the
National
EO?
Presidential Security
NSP and
Memo,
yeah, 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 yeah.
NPSM or something like that says, yeah.
Everybody's a terrorist according to that.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
yeah. So, I mean, but
Yeah,
anyhow,
yeah.
thank you for sharing that. And I would encourage everyone to continue to push your elected officials. I know it feels like when it's like that slow leak, that faucet, and you thinking, "Oh, it doesn't matter." But then all of a sudden your water bill is like $3 million. Like that is what we need to keep calling. We need to keep sending letters. We need to continue to be the squeaky wheel. And every one of us is just as exhausted as everyone else. Probably also Jen, because she is the person that is out there repeating the story. But you know what? We
But yeah,
all have our
I
roles.
realized after a while, I'm like, I've already written about this. I've already said this. Look at this. I wrote about it 4 years ago. And then I'm
I'm
like,
just going to send you this article from 5 years ago. Here you go. But in all
but you have
fairness,
to repeat
like
it. It's like a rock star. You got to keep
you got to
playing
keep,
those same
yeah,
songs.
yeah.
Yeah.
So let's all do our part, man. Let's do our part. Let's continue to play our favorite song. It's not our favorite song, but it's the song that needs to be sung right now.
Yeah.
Um, in order to continue to build awareness in our country, with our friends, with our families, with anybody that will freaking listen to us right now, because if you cannot stand the inhumanity, if you are also brought to the point of tears every day and with every story, And you also want to do every single thing that you can to stop concentration camps, to stop inhumane treatment, to stop dehumanizing immigrants and even American citizens that are at the receiving end of this. Let's do our part every single day and continue to connect with one another and tether ourselves to each other because we're not giving up. We are just getting started. That's all I
Yep.
have to say because we're kind of pissed off and we're done.
Okay.
Abolish ICE. And
Abolish ICE, and I'm going
abolish
to get
ICE.
high now, so I'll see you later.
Oh, there we have it. And abolish ICE.
There you
So
go.
thank you, everyone. We appreciate you, Jen. Love you so much. And
I
thanks,
love you all
everyone.
too.
Have a good evening, and we'll be in touch soon.
I'm wearing my
Oh,
bracelet.
tell the
Where's your
story. Can
bracelet?
you just tell the story about I tell the
It
story.
was our terrible trip to El Paso that I took with Lisa.
It wasn't
And
terrible. It was actually ended up being a good thing.
it did, but with Lisa and her aunt Kim, who's probably watching, and if she's probably having some wine and watching right now.
I
But
love Aunt Kim. She might be here. She was supposed to bring pastelitos, which is a
yeah,
Puerto
yeah,
Rican dish that she
I
makes
had to
better
look it
than.
up. I didn't
She's
know what it was.
Polish and she makes it better than me.
I mean, she's married to a Puerto Rican man,
That's
so
right.
she
Well,
knows
I
how to
am
do it.
Puerto Rican. I can't make it to save
She
my
calls
life.
herself Polar Rican because she's Polish. Polar Rican.
Right.
But so I said, let's make this, let's each get a bracelet and then we put a butterfly clasp to it.
But explain the
Because
butterfly.
so the
So butterflies
butterfly
are
in
my favorite
Spanish,
things.
butterflies are called mariposas.
Mhm.
And so
Mariposas.
the butterfly is symbolic of a migrant because it migrates and it flutters around and it just goes to where it needs to. So that's why you see a lot of butterflies on like the immigrant rights groups and stuff like that and on the
Many
t-shirts.
people don't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And butterflies, here I am walking around because I just so happen to love butterflies.
Oh,
My
Kimmy
favorite
has a
things.
bracelet on too right now, she says. So yeah.
Oh, Kimmy. See,
But I thought of it because I was gonna see you, so I put it on and yeah. But
well,
we all
what do
got
you
bracelets so we could remember the trip together. So
and they're supposed to be on always until we get through this, except the only reason I don't have mine is because mine broke. So I have to find. Yes, it got at my
that's what you
trip.
told me, yeah.
Yeah, otherwise I would have it. So just for what it's worth, remember the butterfly, wear butterflies. I
Mariposas.
mariposas. They also I know that they are also the blue butterfly represents um why am I not thinking for the Epstein files
Oh,
for
does it?
sexual abuse. Yes, it does. The blue
'Cause I have
butterfly,
butterflies on my let me see if you can see that. I have butterflies there too on my inside of my arm, but it's
they're
hard
my
to see.
favorites. I walked here. I have so many butterfly things and then I found out about, that they actually represent immigrants. So
Mhm.
I am now and also Epstein, the blue butterfly, I know why can I not think of her name? Please, someone help me put it in the chat before I leave because I will feel horrible. Epstein files. Sorry,
Is
my
it
brain.
Elisa?
No, 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 no. The survivor
Oh, the survivor.
who has a book that came out. She is
Uh,
blonde. Oh
the
my
one
god.
who
I'm just gonna stop
passed
talking.
away.
That is correct.
Not
That is
Ellie. It's their
correct.
survivor who passed away that they said committed suicide.
Virginia Giuffre.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Hallelujah. I love you, Karma. Thank you. So, anyway, butterfly represents more than one thing. So, wear your butterflies, represent, call your local officials and your state lawmakers and push the envelope and abolish ICE and peace out. Oh, also, hearts. Oh, so,
Heart. Yeah,
yay.
it does it for you, doesn't it for me.
Okay.
Okay.
Sending love and light to everyone.
All
Bye.
right. Bye, everybody.
Take care.